I was just a quiet intern, spending my days making copies and running coffee orders, when I noticed an elderly man standing alone in the center of Northbridge Collective's bustling corporate lobby. Employees streamed past him without slowing down, their eyes fixed on phones or schedules. No one stopping to ask if he needed assistance. At the front desk, the receptionist, Olivia Brooks, was doing her best to manage the situation, but it was obvious she didn't understand what the man was trying to say. Then I noticed his hands, the subtle, deliberate movements, the concentration on his face. He was signing. My heart began to race as I stepped forward and signed a simple greeting. "Hello, can I help you?" His expression shifted instantly. Relief softened his eyes, and his shoulders relaxed as though a heavy weight had been lifted. What I didn't know at that moment was that from the mezzanine above the lobby, Marcus Hale, the CEO of Northbridge Collective, was watching everything unfold. Before continuing, let me ask you something. Have you ever learned a skill solely to help someone you love? Maybe you mastered a recipe, fixed things around the house, or even learned a new language. If you have, share your story. Because that morning, a quiet Wednesday in early November, would change my life forever. My name is Lena Morris. When I joined Northbridge Collective, I was 23, carrying equal parts hope and anxiety. Officially, I was a junior marketing intern. In reality, I existed on the edges of the office, filing paperwork, restocking supply cabinets, and delivering coffee to people who barely noticed me placing cups on their desks. During meetings, I sat at the back, typing notes or arranging folders, never raising my hand, never offering an opinion. To most people at Northbridge, I wasn't a colleague. I was background noise, useful, but invisible. That hadn't always been who I was. In high school, I thrived on attention. I joined drama club, volunteered for assemblies, laughed loudly with friends. Teachers described me as confident and outspoken, but college changed that. There were failed exams, internship rejections, professors who gently suggested communications might not be the right field for me. Each disappointment piled on, slowly wearing me down. By the time I graduated, I wasn't bold anymore. I was cautious, afraid that speaking up would only confirm I didn't belong. Northbridge was supposed to be my reset. Instead, it became another place where I shrank. While my peers debated campaigns and pitched ideas with ease, I avoided eye contact, crowded elevators, even the break room where everyone else seemed to fit in. I preferred stairwells and quiet corners where silence was expected. "Lena, can you handle these?" My supervisor, Sandra Whitfield, would ask, handing me stacks of documents or pointing me toward a storage room that needed reorganizing. Of course, I'd reply softly, relieved the task required obedience, not confidence. But while my professional life felt dull and colorless, my life at home was vibrant because of one person, my younger brother, Noah Morris. Noah was 9 years old, and he was deaf. When he was born, our parents struggled to adjust. They worried about his future, hesitated to learn the language he needed. For me, though, it became a calling. I immersed myself in learning American Sign Language, driven by nothing more than the desire to connect with him. What started as clumsy finger spelling turned into late-night online courses, weekend classes at community centers, and endless practice. One evening, while sitting together on the couch, Noah tapped my arm and signed slowly, "I love you, Lena." I nearly cried, not just because of the words, but because of the trust behind them. He believed I understood him, that he wasn't alone. From then on, ASL became my greatest strength, the one skill that truly belonged to me. Yet at Northbridge, it felt useless. Surrounded by marketers and creative strategists, my ability to sign seemed irrelevant, like owning a violin in a company obsessed with electric guitars. Sometimes, when no one was watching, I practiced beneath my desk, shaping silent letters while keyboards clattered around me. I told myself it didn't matter. ASL was personal, not professional. Still, a small part of me ached knowing something so meaningful to me had no place in my work life. Once, Olivia Brooks caught me moving my hands unconsciously. "Are you rehearsing a dance or something?" she joked. "Not really," I replied quickly, tucking my hands away. Every day at Northbridge was a careful balance: complete the tasks, stay unnoticed, don't stand out. But every evening Noah reminded me that I mattered. He would rush toward me after school, eyes bright, signing animated stories about his day. In those moments, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. I never imagined that skill would matter inside a glass and steel corporate building. I believed Northbridge had no interest in quiet forms of communication. I was wrong. Because on one ordinary Wednesday morning in the middle of the Northbridge lobby, I would see an elderly man standing alone, his lips moving silently, his hands pleading to be understood, and everything I believed about invisibility would change. The morning began like any other. Early November had settled over Portwell City, crisp and cool. The lobby buzzed with urgency, ringing phones, hurried footsteps, deadlines hanging in the air. I was stationed near the reception desk, organizing packets for an afternoon client meeting. Then I saw him. He stood just inside the entrance, tall and distinguished, wearing a tailored charcoal suit that hinted at refinement and experience. His silver hair was neatly combed, his posture dignified, yet tension lined his face. His hands moved carefully, intentionally. He was signing. At the desk, Olivia looked overwhelmed, raising her voice as if volume could bridge the gap. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" she asked, gesturing toward a notepad. He shook his head, his movements growing more urgent. With a sigh, Olivia turned to help the next visitor, leaving him standing alone. I hesitated. I was just an intern. Sandra had been clear: don't interfere with front desk operations. The safer choice was to look away. But then I thought of Noah. I stepped forward, hands trembling, and signed, "Hello, can I help you?" The man's face transformed. His eyes widened, then softened. "You sign?" he replied, relief washing over him. "I thought no one here would understand." "I'm sorry you had trouble," I signed. "How can I help?" "I'm here to see my son," he explained. "I didn't make an appointment." "What's his name?" I asked. He hesitated, then carefully spelled it out. "Marcus Hale." My heart skipped. "Marcus Hale, CEO of Northbridge Collective." "This is your son." I signed. He nodded gently. "I didn't want to cause trouble." "You're not a bother," I assured him. "Please have a seat." His name was Henry Hale. As we waited, we talked. He told me about his career as an architect, about designing buildings across Portwell City. He spoke of his late wife, a teacher at Riverside Academy for the Deaf, and of raising Marcus alone. "I'm proud of him," Henry signed, "but sometimes I think he's forgotten how to slow down." Time passed. My phone buzzed with messages from Sandra demanding updates. Then I noticed movement above us. On the mezzanine level, partially hidden behind a pillar, stood Marcus Hale. He was watching his father, my hands translating, the connection unfolding in plain sight. In that moment, I understood something clearly. I was no longer invisible, and whatever came next would change everything. Coffee practically kept half my buildings alive. Henry Hale signed with a faint smile. A junior copywriter nearby finally asked, "Who is he?" "He's Mr. Hale's father." I explained aloud, then translated Henry's next message. "Tell them a city becomes beautiful when people make space for one another." I shared his words, and something shifted. The room softened, conversation slowed. A few smiles appeared where tension had lived moments before. We continued down the corridor where glass-walled conference rooms lined the hallway like transparent boxes of urgency. Inside one, a team rehearsed a pitch. Slides flashed. A laser pointer hovered nervously over a rising graph. Henry watched the rhythm closely, the handoffs, the nods, the quiet coordination. "Collaboration is the only way anything meaningful gets built," he signed. Buildings, companies, families, same rule. My phone buzzed again. This is unacceptable. Return immediately. Sandra Whitfield, a knot tightened beneath my ribs. For the first time since joining Northbridge Collective, doing what felt right meant deliberately ignoring the person in charge of me. Then I felt it, a tension settling like weight in the air. Across the atrium, on the opposite mezzanine, a tall figure stood just beyond the light. Even at a distance, I recognized the controlled stillness, the way his hand rested on the railing. Marcus Hale. The CEO wasn't just noticing us. He had been watching for a while. I forced myself to continue. We stopped at a display wall, showcasing past campaigns, framed wins and near misses, the company's memory preserved in glass and metal. Henry paused at a transit advertisement and smiled. My wife loved the subway. He signed. She said a city sings if you learn its language. She would have liked this place. I said softly, then signed it back. She believed doors should open both ways. Accessibility is a door, Henry replied. So is respect. I thought of Noah nights when his hands told stories no voice ever could. A creative director intercepted us. Your son is presenting to the board this afternoon, she told Henry, high pressure. I translated. Pride and worry braided together across his face. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even look this time. I silenced it. The decision had been made. Would you like to head back if you're tired? I asked. No. Henry signed, standing a little straighter. I want to understand this world, his world. Twice more, I glanced toward the mezzanine. Twice, the same silhouette remained steady, unmoving. Marcus Hale didn't approach, yet the space felt shaped by his gaze. Henry rested his hands on the railing, overlooking the atrium. He built all of this, he signed, I'm proud. Then he paused. His hands hovered, I only wish. No language made that sentence easy. He still needs you. I signed gently, even if he forgets to show it. Henry looked at me, surprise warming into gratitude. Thank you for seeing me today. He signed. Sometimes that's the hardest part. I nodded, acutely aware of how visible I had become. The intern, who had abandoned her tasks to guide the CEO father through a place that had never fully made room for him. Another buzz rattled my pocket. I let it die. When I looked up again, Marcus Hale stepped out of the shadows and into full light, his expression set with unmistakable resolve. He was coming toward us. When Henry and I returned to the lobby, I knew the grace period was over. My phone was flooded with messages from Sandra Whitfield, and her expression told me the last one had been a warning. She crossed the floor quickly. Lena, you abandoned your assignment, ignored multiple directives, and left your team short-handed, she snapped. Explain yourself. I opened my mouth, but Henry shifted uneasily beside me. Before I could reassure him, another voice cut in, calm, firm, undeniable. Actually, Sandra, I need to speak with MS. Morris first. The lobby quieted. Marcus Hale stepped forward from the elevator bank, composed and direct. His gaze moved from me to his father, something softer loosening his features. She was helping my father, he said. Sandra faltered. Mr. Hale, He raised a hand, not harsh, final. Thank you, Sandra. I'll take it from here. Olivia Brooks froze mid-keystroke. A few employees drifted closer without quite stepping forward. Everyone was listening. Marcus turned fully to Henry, took a steady breath, and raised his hands. The first signs were careful but deliberate. I'm sorry I kept you waiting, he said aloud while signing. I didn't know you were here until I saw you with Lena. I've been watching. Henry's astonishment blossomed into joy. You've been learning to sign. Marcus nodded, his movements growing steadier. I should have done this years ago. I should have met you in your language, not asked you to live only in mine. Emotion rippled through the lobby like a held breath releasing. Someone wiped their eyes. Sandra's shoulders dropped slightly. Olivia exhaled. Henry stepped forward. Marcus met him halfway. Their embrace was quiet and firm, the kind that speaks without sound. For a moment, no one clapped. Then a few soft hands came together. I stood there feeling both invisible and impossibly seen. All I had done was say hello, and a door had opened. They separated. "I'm proud of you," Henry signed. "I'm proud of you too," Marcus replied, regret and relief woven together. "I'm sorry it took so long." Then his attention turned to me. "Ms. Morris," he said, authority intact but gentler now. "Would you come with me to my office? There are things we need to discuss." My stomach dipped. "Yes, sir." I glanced at Henry. He gave me a small nod, encouragement and blessing in one. Sandra found her voice again. "Mr. Hale, the presentation deck, will handle it," Marcus said calmly, eyes still on me. He gestured toward the executive elevator. We walked together, Marcus ahead, me beside him, Henry just behind, the lobby slowly returning to motion in our wake. Inside the elevator, reflection stared back at me. My anxious face, Henry's quiet pride, Marcus's focused calm. "The door's closed. What you did today was right," Marcus said at last, "even if it wasn't on your task list. You showed me a gap here I can't ignore." I swallowed. "Sir, The door slid open again. Sandra stepped inside, flushed but composed. "If decisions are being made about a mess, Morris, I should be present." Marcus considered, then nodded once. "Very well." The elevator began its ascent. When he finally spoke again, I felt the future tilt beneath my feet. And I realized I might not be ready for what he was about to ask me to become. An intern, a father, and a CEO, now connected by something far greater than titles or job descriptions. As the elevator doors slid shut, Marcus Hale looked at me one last time. "Lena," he said quietly, "thank you for seeing what truly matters." At the time, I had no idea how many lives would shift because of that moment, or how much more would soon be asked of me. 6 months passed after that pivotal day in Marcus Hale's office, and what followed was nothing short of a quiet transformation inside Northbridge Collective. True to his word, Marcus moved quickly. I was officially appointed Director of Accessibility and Inclusion, and from the first week, I turned conviction into action. I began with a full audit of the company, not just the physical workspace, but digital platforms, internal systems, and communication flows. Barriers had existed for years, not out of cruelty, but because no one had paused long enough to notice them. The first change I pushed through was simple yet powerful: a visual alert system. Across every floor, red LED strobes were installed and synchronized with fire alarms, door buzzers, and emergency announcements. No one would ever again be left unaware simply because they couldn't hear. At first, the flashing lights startled people. But within days, they became normal, another quiet layer of safety woven into daily life. Next came sign language access. I coordinated a program that ensured every major meeting, quarterly review, and company-wide event included real-time ASL interpretation. Captioning protocols were introduced for all video content, and accessibility guidelines became mandatory for internal documents, training manuals, and marketing materials. Northbridge's work, internal and external, had to be readable, understandable, and usable by everyone. Not everyone welcomed the changes immediately. There were subtle eye rolls in elevators, whispered comments about doing too much or fixing things that weren't broken. I didn't let it stop me. Resistance born from unfamiliarity has a pattern, and I had learned how to outlast it with patience, consistency, and clarity. The real shift didn't come from a memo or an announcement. It came from an unexpected moment. One afternoon, I walked into the break room and froze. Sitting alone at the table was Sandra Whitfield, my former supervisor, the same woman who had once tried to reprimand me in the lobby. Her laptop was open, a video paused mid-frame, an ASL learning app. She was practicing basic signs: thank you, good morning, coffee. When she noticed me, she looked embarrassed. Then she said, "I figured it was time I stopped pretending I already knew everything." I smiled and signed back, thank you. From that day on, things changed. Departments began hosting optional ASL lunch sessions. HR added inclusion training to onboarding. What started as one person's role slowly became part of the company's living culture. The changes didn't stop internally. I worked with marketing to reshape public-facing campaigns, not just rewriting words, but changing representation. Who appeared in ads? Whose voices were included? How testimonials were gathered and shared? I partnered with developers to ensure every website met and exceeded accessibility standards, not because it was legally required, but because it was ethically right. We launched a quarterly empathy and access newsletter, sharing real stories from employees and clients who had once felt overlooked. One story stood out. A longtime client had stopped attending conferences years earlier due to hearing loss. That year, he returned because the entire event now included captioning, ASL interpretation, and live transcription. Afterward, he emailed Marcus 3 words, "I felt seen." Marcus forwarded the email to me without a subject line, just a smiley face. In the 6th month, Northbridge received unexpected news. The company had been nominated for the National Inclusion and Innovation Award, a prestigious honor given to organizations that don't just comply with accessibility standards, but build genuinely inclusive cultures. Marcus insisted I represent the company at the ceremony. I wore a simple black dress and a blue pendant around my neck. No, his favorite color, a gift he'd made years earlier in art class. The ceremony took place in Washington, D.C., inside a grand ballroom filled with corporate leaders, advocates, and policymakers. When Northbridge's name was announced as the winner, there was a moment of stunned silence, then thunderous applause. My heart pounded as I walked to the stage. Marcus clapped the loudest. At the podium, I turned slightly toward the ASL interpreter beside me and spoke slowly, making sure every word could be mirrored. "This award doesn't belong to one person," I said. "It belongs to every receptionist who learned to sign good morning, every intern who asked how they could help, every team that rewrote their work so it could be understood by all." I paused. "Accessibility isn't a favor. It's not charity," I continued. "It's dignity." My fingers brushed the pendant at my neck. "The most important skill we can develop isn't marketing or analytics," I concluded. "It's the ability to see the humanity in every person." Backstage, a journalist asked what came next. "This is only the beginning," I replied with a smile, but even as applause still echoed, Marcus stepped away to answer a call. When he returned, something had changed in his face. Concern tightened his expression. Something was wrong. Something none of us had anticipated. And just like that, the next chapter began. 6 months later, Northbridge Collective felt like a different place. Employees signed greetings by the coffee machines. Campaigns included text and visual translation. Universal design standards guided every project. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was cultural. Empathy had become the company's real currency. Every Thursday at 11:45 a.m., Henry Hale walked through the doors, no longer the deaf visitor, but Henry, retired architect, father of the CEO, and someone who remembered names. He and Marcus shared weekly lunches, often joined by me. Marcus's signing, once hesitant, now flowed naturally. One afternoon, I saw them laughing through a glass wall, father and son, years of distance quietly dissolving. Noah became a familiar face too. During school breaks, I sometimes brought him with me. On his first visit, he stayed close, unsure. Then a group of designers waved and signed hello. His face lit up. By the 3rd visit, he was confidently wandering with a notepad, sketching buildings and showing them to anyone who would look. As we waited for the elevator one afternoon, he tugged my sleeve and signed, "Do you think I could work here someday?" I knelt and signed back, "If you want to, yes." This place sees people like you." And as I said it, I realized it was true. I had helped build that reality. I often think back to that morning in the lobby, the moment everything changed because I chose to step forward. I never set out to be a hero, but sometimes being one simply means making it safe for someone else to be heard. As Marcus once told me, you don't need a cape. You just need to look someone in the eye and show them they matter. And now we want to hear from you. Have you ever seen someone overlooked until one person chose to act? Do you believe small actions can truly change lives? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what comes next.